All right. Yes. I am battling a pretty nasty cold. Um, I've been kind of sick the last couple of days because I'm a little under the weather. I'm going to keep this show short, but I did want to get on the air and talk to everybody. I got hot coffee, which helps the throat a little bit. Mm. But if you have questions, get them in. Get them in. The one thing before I start, there's a few things I do want to. I'm going to have a new mock draft released Tuesday, 6 p.m. The last mock draft I did, I just made a video. I didn't really break down the picks, and part of me regrets it. Another part of me really likes just going through, making it fast, and trying to get my opinion out there. That way, you have something to talk about. For example, John Robinson going to Detroit at 6. I that's kind of a curveball pick, and it's a tough one. Where do I go? But that's a tough one. Something I didn't really go over, but I put in there. I put Philly screwing Dallas with Dalton Kincaid. I think that Dallas is targeting Dalton Kincaid pretty heavy in this draft. So I think Philly could snag him as a way to screw over Dallas. In my mock drafts, I'm not doing trades, but I do bring up. If I do it like I did last time, I'm not going to bring up how many teams want to trade down, but there's multiple teams I think that really want to trade down and a few that want to trade up. So if I do a more extended video, I'm going to come out with that. I got Barry here. Welcome, brother. I got Funk. You know what? This is a great question, and I'm going to go into this with a lot more detail. But last week I had some guests on, and I told them it would be about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And at about 2.5 hours, I had a great question from Perry. He said, do you feel the Steelers can win their division? And that's a question I would have liked to ask everybody, because I know Big Chief Sean felt like the Steelers were rebuilding. I have a difference of opinion. I actually think that the Steelers can win that division. That AFC North is really talented, and the Browns are kind of my sleeper pick. There's always a team that didn't make the playoffs the year before that are going to make the playoffs, and I think the Browns are that team. The Steelers could also be that team. And then you also have Cincinnati and Baltimore. Both teams can easily make the playoffs. That AFC North is a real interesting division. But when I look at the Steelers, they started playing pretty well towards the end of the season with a rookie quarterback. He's just going to get better. George Pickens was playing so well, they just got rid of Chase Claypool for a second-round pick. That's going to be pick number 33. That's a player who could be a day one starter, and it could be in a position of need. I really think that Pittsburgh's a team that you got to worry about. You really do got to worry about. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. And when you talk about the greatest coaches of all time, Mike Tomlin's name does not come up. But, I mean, he's going into year 17, 18, and never had a losing season. That says a lot. It says a lot. I think the Steelers are in really good shape. I really believe that. But that AFC North, I think there's 4 legitimate playoff contenders. Now, I'm counting Lamar Jackson playing for the Ravens. If Lamar Jackson's gone, I don't know. But I love the defense. I love the running game. They got a really good tight end. They signed Nelson Aguilar, who I think is a really good piece for how they want to run that offense. Now, they have a new offensive coordinator, Mike Monahan, I believe it is, former offensive coordinator from Georgia. how's his offense going to translate? Is he going to be ready? Is it going to be a bad situation? I mean, there's question marks about all these teams, but can the Steelers win the division? I think absolutely they can. They're a team that I am worried about. If I'm the Bengals, remember Cincinnati lost to Pittsburgh week 1. I think it was in Cincinnati, if I remember right. If you're an AFC North team, I think fearing the Steelers because you're going to get Watt. Is he back for the whole season? If so, he's a legitimate defensive MVP candidate. Minka Fitzpatrick's, I think, a top 5 safety. And how good can your rookies last year, how good can those guys be? Kenny Pickett, does he make that next step up, or does he have the sophomore slump? George Pickens, when he's healthy, he's a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. I mean, there's some real tools there in Pittsburgh. So, Perry, to answer your question, absolutely. I think so. Big Chief Sean, he thought that Steelers are in rebuild mode. I don't think that. But we'll see. We'll see. A great question, by the way. And I'm sorry we didn't get to that, but when you asked this question, it was about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and there's a private chat feature on StreamYard where you can, have private chats. All the guys at one point in time are like, hey, look, I got to step away for a few minutes. So I knew that this question with 5 people, you're going to get 5 different answers. But it's a great question. And you got another great question right here. Who do you think the Panthers take at 1? Do they take the safer route with C.J. Stroud or Young, or do they take risk versus reward? I personally think that the reason why you make this move is you have a player in mind. Now, they're going to do their due diligence, and if I'm correct, they were at all. Anthony Richardson hasn't had his pro day. Will Levis had his today. They're going to go to all 4 pro days, but I think it is going to be between C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. And every single mock draft I've done so far, now I got a new one released Tuesday, so you never know what I'm going to do, but I'm going with C.J. Stroud. To me, this just makes all the sense in the world. And the thing is I like most about C.J. Stroud is every single interview, the combine, the pro day, he's just even keeled. Nothing seems to rattle this kid at all. He just seems he just seems to have that like alpha dog type of attitude. And a lot of times people conflate alpha dog with being boisterous or braggadocious, and I don't think that at all. I think that this is a guy he's just a real leader, and teammates, coaches love this kid, and then he's got all the intangibles. I mean, he's an athletic kid. They didn't really use that at Ohio State, and I think that adds to it because he can win in the pocket, and that's where you got to win at. The number one thing for an NFL quarterback is accuracy, and I think the most accurate of the quarterbacks would be Bryce Young. I'm not worried about 5'10". I'm telling you right now, he never played a single football game in his life at over 200 pounds. That bothers me. And I'm a big Round the Sticks podcast. I'm not associated with the NFL Network. But Around the Sticks podcast, they're talking about some of the hits that he took in SEC. He may not take in the NFL because the NFL is geared towards protecting their quarterbacks. If you're 200 pounds, I don't see how you can really. I think you gotta. I personally just don't see somebody who played quarterback at under 200 pounds. That's just me. Now, is there upside with Anthony Richardson or Will Levis? The answer is yes. And out of those two, I actually think it would be Levis over Richardson because Richardson's not somebody you can start day one. Levis, I think out of all the quarterbacks in the draft, I think Levis would be most likely to start day one. Sorry about that. But I don't think the upside or the risk is worth it. I personally think it's going to be C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, and there's massive upside with both of them. And I think the floors are higher with those two guys. I've been mocking C.J. Stroud. Frank Wright I mean, Frank Bright, you know who he backed up for almost his whole NFL career was a guy by the name of Jim Kelly. And Jim Kelly was recruited to Penn State because he played in Pennsylvania as a linebacker. So I think that the size thing is a legitimate issue. And that's kind of why I got CJ Stroud over Bryce Young in my first 3 mock drafts. But could you go with Anthony Richardson? Could you go with Levis? You could. I don't think they will. No chance they take a defensive player. The defense, Carolina actually has a pretty solid defense, and you don't make a move like they did for anything other than a quarterback. But I'm kind of agreeing with Funk right here, man. Welcome, brother. And that's kind of what I've been mocking, but you never know what I'm going to do Tuesday. So that's kind of my thought process. But great questions. By the way, in the links in the description, if you haven't checked out my latest mock draft, it's less than 5 minutes. I think it's a pretty good video. I didn't really break down the explanations of any one of those. So, are you sure? No, I'm not feeling well at all. I almost canceled the show, but I did want to get on here. I'm not going to be on too long tonight, but. Yeah, I'm not feeling hot. The one thing I want to encourage you, if you're not already, is all my social media links are below, and then you could also email me. I changed the name; it used to be the Dan Show, but if you look up the Dan Show, you get so many different things. So I changed it to Dan Talks Football, and I didn't even realize it. But my boy Key, he's like, "Hey, look, it's DTF," and I was like, "Oh yeah, Dan Talks Football is DTF," and I didn't realize that, believe it or not. But when I had the Dan Show, but I've had a few people email me directly. You can still email me directly. If you're a longtime regular, me and Denver Gator exchanged numbers. If you're a longtime regular and you're like, "Hey Dan, you mind if I text you?" Hell yeah, you could text me. I'm not advertising it to everybody, but longtime regulars. I know who you are. You're like, "Hey, man, you mind if I give you a text?" Absolutely. And then follow me on social media. If you DM me, I will get back to you. I'm usually pretty good. Same thing with the comments in my YouTube videos, usually within a 24-hour period. So, got that coffee hits the spot. Yeah, will it be above average or great in the NFL? That's a real question. Here's the deal. The one thing about the NFL more than quarterback, more than any other position, you need to have external factors. All right. Do you know who Drew Lock is? And you may not, but let me explain. Drew Lock came out of the University of Missouri. Me and Drew Lock went to the same high school. It's actually funny. I knew a guy who graduated the same year as Drew Lock, and I was like asking him some questions, and he's not a football fan, but he said you knew him. You went to a few parties with Drew. He said he was a good guy. And anyway, Patrick Mahomes went to the Kansas City Chiefs. It was the perfect storm because Alex Smith took him under his wing, invited him to off-season workouts. One of the first things he did was become good friends with future Hall of Fame tight end Travis Kelce, and they built a friendship. And then he also was put in a situation where he got to sit for a year behind Alex Smith, who went to a couple Pro Bowls, was a really good quarterback. Because of all those things, when Patrick Mahomes took over as a starter, he just exploded, and he's now the best quarterback in the league. But it has to do with a bunch of external factors. Drew Lock, he got drafted by Denver. Joe Flacco was public and saying, "Hey, it's not my job to mentor this kid." And that's exactly what happened. There was he didn't mentor him, didn't really grow. He ended up starting the last couple games of the season. I think went 4-1, and he had upside. Instead, they brought in a different coaching staff. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater. I thought that it was a big mistake, and whether it was or wasn't, it's hard to say, but here's the deal. They started Bridgewater. The whole coaching staff got fired. So, he goes to Seattle, loses out to Geno Smith. Now, Could Drew Lock be the next Patrick Mahomes? No, but this was a guy that had massive upside and a lot, and I think is probably better than maybe the bottom 5 starters in the NFL. He signed a 1-year deal, go to Seattle. Here's my point. Quarterback is dictated by so many external factors. All right. Carolina, I think, is a good spot. You got Adam Thielen. You signed DJ Chark. You got Miles Sanders. Ike Ekwonu your left tackle. He was my number 1 player last year. I just fell in love. I kept on watching Ike Ekwonu, and I'm like, guys that size cannot move like that. You heard the phrase "dancing bear." That's what you got with Ike Ekwonu, and with Frank Wright coming in there, former NFL quarterback, a guy that backed up future Hall of Fame or backed up Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly. He knows what a Hall of Fame quarterback should be. So that's a good situation. But the problem is in Carolina is that whoever goes there has to start right away. I've been mocking Anthony Richardson to the Colts at 4. That might be a perfect situation. You get to sit behind Gardner Minshew for a year. You got a good running game. You got a good offensive line. You potentially, and Shane Steichen may have a great coach. So I can't answer your question because there's so many external factors that are involved with quarterback. But I think the potential for whoever goes to the Carolina Panthers, there's a potential to be great because there's a lot of really good pieces in play. I'm almost positive Holmes is going to draft a quarterback now. He says he has mishandled the backup quarterback spot so far, and they re-signed Suffield today. That's not fixed. That's what he had last year. When I when I look at the Detroit Lions draft, I'm convinced that they want to trade down, and I think they want to trade down at 16 and 18, and there's some really good value at safety and off-ball linebacker. And both those positions are not really high draftable positions, and those are 2 positions I think that even after signing CJ, GJ, Charles, or is it Clancy? Gardner Johnson. You guys know who I'm talking about. Even after signing that, you still want to add to those positions. So I could see them trading down 6 and 18. I'd be interested to see what you could do. But the draft for me at pick number 6, Luke G, as you well know, has been saying Will Levis. So I think if you're stuck at 6, you take Levis. If they don't trade down, Levis is a possibility. So why don't you do more? Okay, so what I do is during the regular season, I'm on Tuesdays and Fridays, and I have a weekly picks video, and then occasionally I do more information. I'm thinking about going back on live Tuesday and Friday. I'm toying around with doing that, but I'm doing a lot of draft content right now. But there's a good chance I'm going to get more and more into it. I might go live again Tuesdays during the regular season. I'll be live Tuesdays and Fridays, and I'll have a weekly picks video, and then I'll have other videos that I'll come out with, and I'm planning on doing more content. It's just it's in the books. It's in the books. I've just been backed up. Oh, Hey Girl TV. Oh God, I love Hey Girl TV. If your girlfriend's into fashion, beauty, fragrance, I'm getting that wrong. Gotta follow Hey Girl TV. I'm under the weather. I'm not. Probably sound horrible. I could see the Lions move up for 3 or even. I think Hendon Hooker at 18 is a strong possibility, but I really do. I think the Lions want to trade down at 6, and I think they want to trade down at 18, and I think you could see multiple teams that want to trade. Hendon Hooker at 18 is a possibility, and there's massive upside. You could also have some backup quarterbacks. Jameis Winston re-signed in New Orleans, which I thought was really surprising. I don't know how he fits the offense, but I would love to see somebody like I would love to see Cam Newton back in the NFL. I don't know if he fits what the Detroit Lions are wanting to do, but somebody like Cam Newton, I would love to see as a backup quarterback. So, um, there's always been Kansas City. They lost their backup quarterback. He retired, but Andy Reid's always had a 30. Oh, he wants a quarterback who's over 30 who can, you can come in, and that's something that Chiefs are going to have to do. And I'm kind of curious if there's somebody who's over 30 that maybe has some starting experience that Detroit's looking at instead of going younger. They may be looking older, somebody who can also help Jared Goff in the classroom. Off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank, but actually, it'll be expensive, but somebody like Andy Dalton, for example. That's interesting, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would have Hendon Hooker in the first round. You have to be convinced that is medical is going to clear. And I apologize. I'm really back on the comments here. I'm going to try to get caught up pretty quick. But I'd be really shocked about that. But seriously, in my mock draft, my latest mock draft, and I got the link to that below, I got Levis falling all the way to 19. So Levis might be a possibility at 18. So Pride, I was in a non-smoking commercial. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That would be interesting because I know Arizona wants to trade down, and I think 6 would be perfect. I think 6 could be perfect. And I also think that there's a strong chance quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this draft. I really do. That's really awesome. There's a report Lamar is done with the Ravens. Do you think he sits out this year? I think that when everything's said and done, Lamar Jackson's going to be the Ravens quarterback for 2023. I really believe that. I've heard different teams, and the teams I've heard them going to doesn't make a lot of sense. I heard something today about Minnesota that makes no sense. The offense that Minnesota runs doesn't fit Lamar Jackson at all. I personally think that he's going to play for the Ravens, and the weird negotiation tactics that are going on. I'll give Lamar some credit. I think tweeting out the contract was a really smart idea. I don't believe that for a moment. I don't think the Ravens offered him 135 guaranteed at all. That was Lamar Jackson or one of Lamar Jackson's Twitter accounts. So do I think he could sit out? That's a possibility. It really is. We saw it's a different position, but Le'Veon Bell, remember Le'Veon Bell sat out for a year. I would hate it personally, but I'll tell you this. I do 100% believe that he'll be the Ravens quarterback. So that is all. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. If you can, Funk, can you send me a link to that? Is it on YouTube? I want to see it. Oh man, Denver. I'm not gonna be on long today, Denver Gator. But oh god, a Denver Gator. Like I said, follow me on social media. Me and Denver Gator exchange numbers. Some of you longtime regulars, if you want my number, hit me up. The channel's designed to throw a wide net and talk to different people, but I want to communicate and hit up with football fans. So that's kind of the whole point of this and setting it up. And Perry had a good. I think I'm going to do more and more stuff, but right now, just the weekly video Tuesday and the live stream Friday. That's it for right now. Dude, that is fantastic news, man. And this is the whole reason why I want to, hear for you guys. So The Steelers are taking offensive tackle. Do you think they trade one trade? In my latest mock draft, I had them taking Joey Porter Jr. and I think the Steelers could go a lot of different ways. Now, keep in mind, they got a lot of young players on that offensive line, and the last part of the season, the offensive line started to play pretty well. The Steelers at 18 are an interesting team because I actually think that they could trade down, but I had Joey Porter Jr. going at 17. I'm sorry, Lions pick 18. I don't like sentimental picks in the draft. That's more fun things for like me and you, but NFL teams really don't think that way. But I had Joey Porter Jr. in my last mock draft going to Pittsburgh at 17, and to me that makes a lot of sense. So. What was Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray, I want to say 205, 210. But it's a little different of a situation because Kyler Murray has legitimate 4.3 speed, and he had the ability to escape where you don't have that with Bryce Young. But I mean, that's a good point. It is a good point. And keep in mind, Bryce Young's definitely in the running to go number one. I want to be very clear about that. I have no idea what Frank Reich is thinking. It's just that I've been mocking Stroud, and that just kind of makes sense for me. Hatter's house wasn't. Oh, God. Hatter's house 710, man. What's up, brother? I got my boy Chad. Yeah. I think so too, man. Yeah, I know. So some of you follow me on Instagram, some of you on Twitter. I still do Facebook, but I've been doing less and less of Facebook. I have that old email address which you can use as well. And if you've been following me for a while, and you can text me. I'm not feeling bad. I actually like both of these picks. I like them a lot. I'm a little curious. Here's the thing I like about the CGJ. I have such a hard time doing that. Is you got them on a 1-year deal. So let's say this pans out, then you sign them to a multi-year deal. If it doesn't pan out, you move on. That's what happened with the Honey Badger at the Houston Texans. They signed for a 1-year deal. They didn't really use him right, but he parlayed that into a 3-year, $42 million deal and a Super Bowl ring with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. I want to know how they're going to use him, because if you just want to use him as a safety, I think you're mismanaging him. But if you move him all around and get creative, you could have something really good. But I do like the fact that you had one of the worst defenses in the league, and you got 2 starters out of free agency, and you have 4 draft picks. I don't have the exact numbers. What do you pick? 49 and I want to say 57, 58. But, you have 4 draft picks in top, let's just say top 60. So, yeah. I think Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid. Andy Reid has not Dave McNabb in Philly. He was like Mahomes. You have to understand, and this goes back, quarterback is dictated by so many outside factors, and that's why you can't really say if one quarterback's going to be successful or not successful. It takes so many external factors. I do think that whoever goes to Carolina is going to have a nice is going to have a nice career, because you got Frank Wright. You have at least a left tackle. The offensive line, I think, is pretty solid overall. You have Miles Sanders. You have Adam Thielen. They assigned DJ Chark. You have, and you're in a bad division. That NFC South, I think, is completely up for grabs. So whoever goes to Carolina, I think, has a good chance to be successful, whether it's Stroud or Young. But I do believe it's down to one of those two. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I thought that was one of the dumbest things Flacco could have done. I remember when they signed Flacco, I remember they signed him to a lot of money, and I was like, "Oh, this is not going to work." And you're 100% correct. Yeah, and that was a bad move on Flacco. And by the way, if you didn't notice, he's changed his tune completely with the Jets. He said that, hey, I'm here to help. Um, uh, drawing a complete blank. Zach Wilson. And by the way, how much is he helping Zach Wilson? Because Zach Wilson, hasn't really progressed. So yeah, you're right. And Drew Lock, it's a shame because I think he has the tools to be an NFL starter. Hopefully he'll get a chance. He won't get a chance to play unless Geno Smith goes down. But I do think that there's going to be a team. I think that there should be a team that looks sooner or later. I think Drew Lock will get a chance. So. There's definitely a chance. I've been mocking him. I've been mocking him to the Colts at 4, and that makes a lot of sense. You signed Gardner Minshew, and to me, that's a perfect bridge quarterback for a guy like Anthony Richardson. Yeah, a guy like Gardner Minshew who doesn't have the physical tools, but he's a pretty good quarterback because of a lot of his intangibles. That's the perfect bridge quarterback for a guy like Anthony Richardson. But the Colts may be in love with Will Levis. So the way I had my final mock draft, and by the way, check it out below. It's less than 5 minutes. I think it's an excellent video. I changed some things. So but check out the mock draft. Like I said, it's less than 5 minutes. But I had Anthony Richardson at 4, but I had Levis the 19 at the Tampa Bay. You could flip those. You could flip those. And if you do, let's say whoever after the Colts at 4, if the Colts stay at 4, a quarterback could fall all the way to 18 or 19. And I think out of those 4 quarterbacks, I think there's definitely 4 first-round quarterbacks. Hendon Hooker, maybe not. If they don't go 1, 2, 3, and 4, you could fall all the way to 19. So the answer is yes. But I've been mocking Anthony Richardson the 4 at the Colts. So Denver Gator says Panthers grabbed Chark today, right? Carolina's slowly building a decent team in a crap division. Yeah, I really like what the Panthers are doing. And I say the same thing over and over again. You need 3 things in the NFL. You need a quarterback. They're getting their guy. You need a left tackle. Ike Ekwonu, 6th overall pick last year, my number 1 player, has all the tools to be a Pro Bowl left tackle. He was a redshirt sophomore last year. So, I mean, he's just all the room in the world to grow. He ain't an edge rusher. They got a good one, Brian Burns. So that division's completely up for grabs. And the moves that they're making, I like that you lose the number 1 wide receiver, replace him with a pair of 2s. You got Miles Sanders, a guy who offers some explosiveness in the backfield, a move I like. I wish they would have kept Dante Foreman. I have no idea why teams give up on this guy. Every time he was at Tennessee, played phenomenal. Had over 900 yards in 10, 11 games for Carolina. And by the way, I think Chicago did a great job picking him up. I think he's a really solid player, but I do like Miles Sanders. They gave him a lot of money. So it'll be interesting. He's got to earn it. But with Frank Reich, I think that they're going to use him right. So no, and that's the one thing. Off-ball linebackers have fallen. In my latest mock draft, there are no trades. I had Trenton Simpson to Detroit at 18, and I had Devin Lloyd rated higher than Simpson. And Devin Lloyd went, I think, 26th to Jacksonville, 26th, 27th. There was a trade down. So that's kind of why I think that Detroit could draft an off-ball linebacker in the 2nd round, or they can go from 18 and trade down. There's a team, I've mentioned this, that there's several teams that want to trade up. I could see Kansas City wanting to trade up, believe it or not. They have, I think, 13 draft picks. They're not going to draft 13 players. Kansas City could trade up. A team like Cincinnati may be interested in trading up. There's a lot of teams that could want to trade up to 18. And I think Detroit wants to trade down at both 6 and 18. And I think they just want to get a lot of players. So, yeah, if you're targeting an off-ball linebacker, because there are no trades, I like Trenton Simpson quite a bit, but I like Lloyd better. And Lloyd went in, I want to say 26. So you may be able to trade down, like I said, maybe trade all the way down to 31 and get your linebacker there. I'll be honest with you. At 18, it was between Simpson and Brian Brees, and I went Simpson. But Brian Brees is a guy that may be available late in the first. You may be able to get him in the second. There's some other defensive tackles. I can't think of his first name. Becton, the defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, I think would be a nice fit. I really do. I think the Lions are a team that's going to want to trade down and get. I seriously wouldn't be surprised at the end of the day if you guys end up drafting like about a dozen players. So, yes, I love you too. She is so awesome, and I'm behind on comments. So, yeah, he does bring a lot of attention, but he's a guy that I would love to see back in the NFL. I wasn't a fan of him. But now he's a guy just grown on me, and I think that there's a spot for him in the NFL. I would love to see him get back in the NFL. So, yeah, I did not like that move at all. I didn't like that move at all. This is great news. That's awesome. Dan, you're good. Okay, I will. 48 and 4. Okay. Yeah, so you get 4 picks in 45. It wouldn't surprise me if you trade down from 6 and 18 and draft like a dozen players and just add up. So, yeah, I'm not in good shape today. I do think so. I do think Montgomery is a slight upgrade over Jamal Williams. And I've always liked Jamal Williams, but I've had a huge man crush on David Montgomery ever since he was at Iowa State. He was a really good player at Iowa State. So, if that's true, then I think you're misusing him. What makes him really good is that he was a corner that Philly wanted him to play a little free safety, and he could do a little bit of everything. But I think putting him in a box would not be his strong suit. Now that said, it's not really a fair comparison. I don't like doing this, but the Honey Badger, when the Honey Badger signed with the Houston Texans on a 1-year deal, they put him in the box and had him play strong safety, and he parlayed that into a good contract with Kansas City and a good contract with the Saints. So you have something there. You got him for 1 year, and if it doesn't pan out, he'll leave. So I think it's a great signing for Detroit. I'm just not sure how they are going to use him. If you use him right, you got a really. I think he's best used as a chess piece. But if you put him in the box, I think you're misusing him. They'll be interested to see what you have. So that's awesome. I had no idea you had about 30 million. That's good move. That's good, and you're going to need that because I do think you're going to draft a lot of players. Now, this I disagree. I love what the Bears did in free agency. You added a number 1 wide receiver. Tremont Edmonds is a guy I've had a major man crush on coming out of Virginia Tech, and I thought that Leslie Frazier in Buffalo runs a lot of Tampa 2 type tendencies, and they have Tremont Edmonds operating in space quite a bit. Now he can do that, but he's 6'4", 260. And he's a powerful dude. I was surprised they didn't use him blitzing more and less in coverage, and I think that's what you're going to see. And TJ Edwards is a guy I absolutely love. So I think the Bears had an excellent free agent pickup. Plus, you still have a top 10 pick. So, I Zach Wilson's been a boomer bust pick so far. So far, he's been a bust. Maybe I think he does. I think he does. The Jets made an interesting move with Cleveland. I didn't talk about this earlier when you had your question about the Steelers. Elijah Moore was a pickup I really like for the Cleveland Browns, but you also get an extra draft pick for the Jets. I would definitely move Zach Wilson. And I mean, off the top of my head, there's a couple teams that would be interested in them. I'm looking at teams that have veteran quarterbacks that may, want a younger guy. I would have said Tampa, but you signed Baker Mayfield. A team like the Rams, I think, would be perfect. I think a team like the Rams, I think, would be absolutely perfect for Zach Wilson. I know that because they're kind of having a fire sale right now. They're not going to want to give up. I think they picked 37th, 38th. They're not going to give up that draft pick, but they may want to give up like a later draft pick. But he's a guy that's got a future in the NFL. Maybe the Raiders might be an interesting team. Sit behind Garoppolo for a few years, but I think I think what's going to happen is Rodgers is going to be traded to Green Bay. Then after that's over, then Wilson's going to be shipped out. Is kind of what I see happening. That's just my opinion, but yeah, I do think he needs a new team. Oh man, dude! Congratulations! This is fantastic news, man. I'm so happy for you, man. I live in a apartment, and of all the apartments I lived in, this is easily my favorite. But I would love to get into a house. So many financial considerations there. This isn't the finance channel, but that is fantastic news, man. So congratulations. So yeah, I'm fully aware of how much time it takes moving into a house, all the work. So great job, man. This is fantastic news to hear. Holmes is a beast. He got Harris, Cora, Big V ought to stay for the same money. They could have got if they cut him. They could have got the money. Yep. Yeah, he's made some really good moves so far. I didn't even touch base on this, but those of you who follow me on Instagram, DraftKings doesn't have it, but Barstool has the division winners, and they have Detroit as a pretty big favorite to win the NFC North. I'd really like to know what you guys think about that, but how these moves are factoring into that. And I'm going to try to get through these comments, but I'm going to end the show. I'm having a real hard time talking, so I apologize. That is a good thing. This is Edmund's younger brother. He played safety for the the Steelers. Yeah, it's a nice 1-year deal, and it wouldn't surprise me if he goes back to Philly next year. So. I actually think the Chiefs could trade up for a receiver. I'm in a very lone minority that thinks that Kansas City can. That Kansas City really wants a wide receiver, and the reason why I say this is that the majority of Chiefs fans are clamoring for DeAndre Hopkins, which I think is a massive mistake. This wide receiver class, and by the way, give a shout out to Roar of the Lions UK. He just had a nice video breaking down the receivers. This is a very underrated receiver class, but I think Kansas City could trade up and actually get a receiver. Somebody like Jackson Smith and Jigba might slide. into the 20s, the team like Kansas City may want to trade up to 18, 19, Jackson Smith and then Jigba. Quentin Johnson's my number one receiver. Reminds me a lot of Julio Jones as a guy that I really like. Jordan Addison, I've had mocked 25 to New York, where Daniel Jeremiah has him as the number 9 player on his big board. So, yeah. This would be a great move. Bobby Wagner signed late last year. And this is a guy that I think would be perfect for the Lions. Matter of fact, I think I would love that. CJ messed up his own contract talks. He was a priority early in free agency. Teammate long-term deals. CJ was overwhelmed. Okay. And keep in mind, I think the 1-year deal, it worked out really good for the Honey Badger. And I don't like, comparing players like that, but it is an apt comparison. And I'm kind of curious how they're going to use them in Detroit. It's going to be very interesting. So this is a guy I'm very, very high on. I cannot pronounce his name. It's Tulai Tagovailoa. It's something. It's kind of weird because it was released that he played at 290. He actually played at 260. He's a guy that he's a quote unquote tweener. I would like to see him go to a 3-4 team and play outside linebacker, but he's also somebody come into a team like Kansas City. This is a guy I really like. There was a nice article about him and how he was a team leader at USC and coaches, players, teammates think very highly of him, and he was super productive when he was at USC. I was toying around mocking him to 31 to Kansas City in multiple mocks, and I've had them going wide receiver, but he's a guy I wouldn't mind in Kansas City, and he could go late first round. So actually, I did kind of forget about Kancey, and keep in mind, Brad Holmes was I believe Brad Holmes was in LA when they drafted Aaron Donald, or actually I think it was it St. Louis at the time? It could be St. Louis at the time. I have to go back, but I believe Brad Holmes was with the Rams when they drafted Aaron Donald, and they went to the same school, their same build, so that might be an interesting. And actually, I would like that Kancey with McNeil. But if you do draft either Brees or Kancey, I would definitely trade Ozarike and get rid of him. He's a guy I really wanted here in Kansas City, and you might just have to move on from Ozarike. Yeah, Bates going to Atlanta was a really good move, and it's also a move I think that really hurt Cincinnati. Even though Cincinnati signed Orlando Brown Jr., I would take, like, if you're using Madden rankings, and if Cincinnati is ranked 90, I would drop down to 88 because Bates was such a good player. Yeah, and he did think he was going to get Bates money, and didn't. So, Steve Alba, for those of you who don't know, TCU guard. I'm probably going in the second. Some mock drafts I've had him going to first. I like this guy quite a bit, actually, and he absolutely. He's a guy that could go to a team, be a day one starter. Don't be surprised, maybe a team like Pittsburgh at 33, and he could be a stud. Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy I really, really like. It's going to be interesting to see. How do I say this politely? I have more faith in Philly's defensive staff last year. Gannon is taken over as a head coach. They kind of went from a base 4-3 to a 3-4-4-3 hybrid, and they also took Gardner Johnson, who was a corner, and then they moved him into a chess piece. I don't know if Detroit has that coaching staff that can use them the same way. If they do, then it's going to be a great move. It's going to be a great move. This is going to be like one of the moves that you're not going to see it in preseason, by the way. You're not going to see it in preseason. But week one, I want to see how they use them. And that's something I'm really going to pay attention to. That's definitely a possibility. You got a guy who was a third pick overall. you could actually draft a corner and then maybe move Okuda in a trade if you're not happy with them. Jacobs will be a dime. That's kind of interesting. Do you think the Bears? I have been mocking Peter Skornonski, offensive lineman. I think he's a left tackle. Some people think he's better suited for the inside. He's not as good as Rashawn Slater was coming out of Northwestern, but this is a guy I think's plug and play. I've been mocking Peter Skornonski just because he's a local kid. Northwestern's not exactly in Chicago, but it's relatively close. I'd have to get a map, but I've been mocking him, but Johnson, tackle out of Ohio State. You can go either one. I've been mocking that to Chicago at 9, but you can also go edge rusher. You could do a variety of different things if you're Chicago. But I love this slasher. I want you to stay on this. Richardson's going to go first overall. Right Connect crew that was in on taking Hurts in the second. He does, and that's kind of here's the thing though. Stroud's a guy that can scramble and move around, but he played within the pocket at Ohio State, and that's why I really like that. That's why I really like Stroud going there. But my latest mock draft, you never know what I'm going to do. If I'm Richardson, I'm kind of angling. His pro day is coming up next week. If I'm Richardson, I'm doing this to go to the Colts because I sit behind Gardner Minshew for a year. I got a good running back. I get a good offensive line. I have some good skill position players. Carolina would also be a good move. I want you to stay on board with this because this is a kind of a minority opinion, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out. We're just slightly over a month away. So in my mock draft is I meant to change this. I am so sorry. I thought I changed this. I forgot to save. It's not its latest. It'll be my 4th mock draft. So, and I apologize. I'm really. I don't think so personally. I think if anything, they trade down because I mean they need some edge rush. They need offensive line. They could do a variety of different things, but you never know. I don't think so personally, but you don't really know. But Hurt developed with Nick S., not Frank R. Okay. So Hurts developed with Nick Sirianni, not Frank Wright. That makes sense. I think from a contract, situation, it wouldn't make sense, but you never know. I think it's definitely a possibility. Yeah, I did want to come on, but yeah, I'm not I'm nowhere near 100%. Yeah, I've been mocking a wide receiver. My first mock draft, I Jackson Smith Najigba sliding all the way to 31. I have a hard time believing that he goes to 31, but I my last mock draft I had Quentin Johnston out of TCU, who's my wide receiver number 1. Jordan Addison, I've been mocking lately to the Giants, and to me that just makes a lot of sense. I think a guy like Jordan Addison going to the Giants at 25, but I would be very happy with that. I would love to know if you have a full mock draft. Man, I would love for you to send it to me. I would love to send it to me, and if you're interested, I could do a review video on it. If you don't want to, that's okay too. But I'd love to see it. Oh, I got my boy Keys. I'm under the weather, so I'm gonna end the show soon. But man, I'm really glad you're here, brother. A lot of free agents are there. Yeah, a lot of them did, and also one of the things Keys is awesome on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. Yeah, McCole Hardman's agent. I'd be really interested to hear what he had to say. That press conference was not good by Miracle Hardman. One thing I can tell you though, in his defense, is that Kansas City media and New York media are different things. I think Miracle Hardman may have been just overwhelmed, where maybe you have 5 to 6 beat reporters reporting or going to a press conference. You're going to have 40 in New York, and his press conference was really bad. To me, I saw somebody who looked scared. I'm going to defend him a little bit, but it wasn't good. He did not look good, and I think that I'm going to defend him and say that it was just the New York media, because it's a different beast than in Kansas City. I mean, you're on completely different ends of the spectrum. Kansas City media is usually friendly and small. New York is angry and large. But I'd be very curious to hear what his agent actually recommended him. That was actually a good signing by the Jets, I thought. But I have to admit, though, the player that they moved to Cleveland, Elijah Moore, was a guy I absolutely loved coming out of Ole Miss. So you go ahead and you move that, but you're trying to get trade capital for Aaron Rodgers. So it'll be interesting. So he did pound it. Okay. If he did, I would have to look that up. I would have to look that up. So but yeah, Clancy at 18 makes a lot of sense. So Dan, if we trade up for a wide receiver, what's your thought of Reed's lack of early wide receiver involvement is because of the lack of polished players where we've been, oh boy. So Dan, if we trade up for a wide receiver, what is your thought that Reed's lack of early wide receiver involvement is because of lack of polished players where we've been drafting? All right. The reason why I think we trade up for a wide receiver is really just the positional value. Wide receivers are now, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams are now getting over $30 million a year. That's about a tenth of your salary cap. So getting a wide receiver that you can have for that 5th-year option, I think is big. The lack of polished players, Jordan Addison's a guy that's polished. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a good route runner. Both those guys, I think, would have a little more would play a little more year one than somebody like Sky Moore. Now, Sky Moore, I think in the regular season, 25, 30 receptions. I have no idea. I expect that to double, maybe triple. And then if you remember, he had that big punt return in the AFC Championship game and a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith, and Jigba would be a lot more productive than Sky Moore. Now, Quentin Johnston, who's my wide receiver number one, would not be as productive. Now, because he's 6'4", the Chiefs may want to throw him some jump balls in the end zone, maybe. But that's a guy that you would be looking at as saying he'd be more productive in years 2, 3, and 4. I'm not sure that answers your question exactly. But in this wide receiver class, I now keep in mind Jordan Kincaid is a tight end in name only. I think he's going to end up just being a big wide receiver like Kelsey or Darren Waller. He's a guy that I think Dallas is very interested in, but I would love to see Kansas City draft him. I just don't think that Kansas City is going to draft a tight end, even though Kincaid's not really a tight end. I would be over the moon if the Chief drafted this guy. So I hope that answers your question. If it didn't, hit me up because I want to have you guys on in a couple weeks to do a mock draft. So, man, that's a tough one. Year one was not good, but I like the Hutchinson pick. I think he did what you need to do. He's gone in a bad situation. I like the fact that he brought in I can't believe I'm forgetting this. John Dorsey. I like the fact they brought in John Dorsey as well. I'm going to say yes, but I really need to see year 3. I really need to see year 3 because if the Lions don't take a step up, then no. But the Lions step up, and by the way, when I say step up, 9-8, 10-7, wild card berth, not winning the division would be an improvement. If you take a step down, a step backwards, then no. So it's to be determined. Cincinnati lost both their safeties. Almirono has his work cut out for him. We saw how bad Buffalo looked in the Buffalo-Cincinnati playoff matchup when their safeties were dropping like flies. Now, one of the things that they did do is they drafted Bates' replacement last year, a player by the name of Daxton Hill, one of my favorite players in the draft, a player I was kind of hoping Kansas City would grab because he can do a lot of things that the Honey Badger did. He played, by the way, the Bengals used him as a nickel corner, so he's going to replace Bates. A strong safety, I'm kind of wondering if they're going to draft his replacement in the draft, but Daxton Hill, you're rolling the dice. But I do think that Cincinnati got significantly worse than they were last year in free agency. Now I know they signed Orlando Brown, but they lose Bates. That's a big loss. And you got a second-year player who's unproven, who's going to replace one of the best safeties in football. So you got your free safety, and he's a guy I really liked. I really liked Daxton Hill. He was a guy I would love Kansas City to draft because he would be the starting safety for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Chiefs, by the way, underrated free agent move was signing Mike Williams from Tampa Bay. I really like that move. Nobody's talking about it, but really good pickup. You could draft Antonio Johnson at 27. My last mock draft, I had a corner, but you could draft a safety. But they do have Daxton Hill. But we're going to see. Almirono's a guy I really thought would get a head coaching job. So, yeah. Yeah, he is a really good coach. He's a really good coach. Panthers continue. Yeah, I like what Carolina's done so far. I really do. I really do. I think that that NFC South, I think, is really just up for grabs. Any team could win that division. Right now, I like the Saints because I like Derek Carr more than a lot of other people. I also like Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen was the coach of the Raiders when Derek Carr was drafted, so these two know each other. I really like both these guys. So right now it'd be the Saints, but to be honest with you, all 4 of those NFC South teams have a legitimate chance. They really do. So what team got worse during free agency? And the Bears free agency did not impress me. Well, okay, I do disagree with you. I like the Bears, what they did. I think they did a fantastic job. And now keep in mind, I'm also counting DJ Moore as an addition to their offense. I mean, you got him with Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet. You have a nice offense. And then I also really like Dante Foreman. He's a guy that he's super productive everywhere he goes, but teams keep on getting rid of him. But what team got worse? I think Cincinnati got worse. I really do. Losing Bates is big. He's a guy that's really, really, really good. Philly, take a look at Philly. You lose Carter, CGJ. Shit. The defensive tackle is signed with San Francisco, Hargrove. That was big. Now you did re-sign Lane Johnson. You re-signed Fletcher Cox. You re-signed Brandon Graham. But how much productive? It's an old NFL saying you want to get rid of a player 1 year too early than 1 year too late. But how much production are you going to get from Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham? If you get those guys anywhere near their prime, great. How often does happen with mid-30s guys? Same thing with Kelsey. I mean, is Kelsey going to be the best center in football or a top 3 center at 36? That's off the top of my head. I'd have to think a little more about that, but that's off the top of my head. I thought the Bears did too. Kansas City. Frank Clark has an interesting skill set because I think he can be a 3-4 outside linebacker, but he's played 4-3 defensive end. I'm kind of leaning towards Chicago because I think Chicago, what they want to do is use the 9th pick on an offensive lineman, and then they want to get a free agent pass rusher. So I'm leaning towards Chicago. I'm hoping Kansas City. San Francisco, because they lost their edge rusher to Kansas City. It wouldn't surprise me. Pete Carroll's always been a guy that's welcome to bring people back, and that might be an interesting, because one thing Frank Clark does pretty well is that he also plays to run. He's a good pass rusher, but he's also solid against the run. But if you had to put a gun to my head, I'm going to say Chicago. The only thing that scares Dan Moore in finding out he has an opinion shared by the majority is I like that. I like the differences of opinion. Carolina Lions fans talk like Super Saiyan Lions, man. I'm under the weather. I'm going to end the show here in just a few minutes. I'm really struggling to talk. So, I mentioned this. I think Kansas City is going to trade up. I think they could surprise people. Philly could trade down in this draft. My latest mock draft, I had them taking Kincaid at 10. The Raiders are another question mark team. But absolutely, there's going to be I think there's going to be multiple picks in this draft that we're not going to see coming. So Lions can have a better free agency. The Bears can still have a good one. They got no one. Yeah, I really like what the Bears did in free agency personally. So grossly underpaid, overpaid. I actually, to be honest with you, I think Edmonds could be an upgrade, because Roquan Smith is a sideline to sideline backer, but he's undersized, where Edmonds is 260 and can do it. It's going to be really interesting, because I want to see how he's used. But that's debatable. But that's interesting. I like that opinion, though. I really do. I didn't hate Hardman, but I'm not going to cry tears that he's gone. And in my opinion, he's mentally weak, totally unimpressed. Yeah, absolutely. Keep in mind, let's go back. Remember, the Chiefs traded up in the second round to get Miracle Hardman because of the report that was incorrect, that Tyreek Hill was going to get banned from the NFL. Remember the whole Tyreek Hill baby mama drama? That was a disaster. So anyway, Tyreek Hill was potentially not going to be on the Chiefs, so the Chiefs traded up in the second round and drafted Miracle Hardman. Miracle Hardman, a lot of people thought was a 5th-round player. Miracle Hardman's kind of an interesting story. He was a 5-star player, went to Georgia. He was going to sit behind Nick Chubb. Drawing a blank on the other guy. He was at the Rams last year, Patriots 1st-round pick. Not two Georgia running backs, one of the best college football duo at running back of all time. I'm drawing a complete blank on the guy's name, but Nick Chubb. So Hardman was going to be the next 5-star running back, but they recruited another 5-star running back in DeAndre Swift, and they were like, Swift's playing better. Can you move to receiver? But he only got to play 1 year at receiver. He was basically a return guy, and Kansas City went and they traded up for a guy that they were like, hey, look, you're not exactly Tyreek Hill, but you're a former running back, receiver, returner. We're going to lose Tyreek Hill, but you're 100% correct. And you didn't hate on Hardman, but you were right that he did not. So he had by the way, if you're not aware, you can find it on Twitter. Miracle Hardman met with the New York media and did not I think he was scared, but he did not sound good. But you're right. He never really impressed me. And I knew he was going to be gone. I'm not going to miss him. I'm not going to miss him at all. So, but you're right. You're right. It'll be interesting to see because I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to be at the Jets. It'll be interesting to see how these two get along. It wouldn't surprise me if these two clash. So everyone always says something that's a gross overpay and 2 years later. Yeah, I think that they're going to use. I think the Bears are going to draft a tackle. So he might. When he came out of Virginia Tech, he was drafted at 19, and nobody knew where he was going to play because he was 6'4", 260, 255, I think, and ran a 4.55. You could have put 30, 40 pounds on him and played defensive tackle. You could have put 20, 30 pounds on him and played defensive end. The Bills, I thought, misused him because they said you're going to play middle linebacker and we're going to use a cover 2 defense, which usually is for smaller, faster linebackers. How he's going to be used in Chicago might be worth it because I really thought that Edmonds was going to win Defensive Player of the Year one day, but the way he's used in Buffalo, no, I don't know, but I think that they use him more in the box where I think would really excel, then yeah, he might be. I don't know how they're going to use him. If they blitz him more, which I think he has to, he wasn't used at all in Buffalo as a blitzer. If you do, maybe. So it's to be determined, but he could be. I'm not sure the 5th-year option is going to be that valuable for a receiver, in my opinion. If the wide receiver is that good, exactly. But with the 5th-year option, you have the option because you know. So in 3 years, 3 years from now, you have to make a move on. Keep in mind the Chiefs will probably redo it before then, but in 3 years from now, you have both Sky Moore and Cardavious Toney's contracts are going to be up. So that's kind of why I like it, because you may have to play hardball with one or two of them. You may not be able to resign them both. And so, or you may want to get rid of them both. They may be such good assets that you have to get rid of them. That's kind of what I'm thinking of, because I'm looking at two players. Both their contracts are going to be up in 3 years the way things are now, Cardavious Toney and Sky Moore. You don't have Juju Smith-Schuster anymore. I personally think that this is Kelsey's last year. Some people think he's going to play more, but he's a guy that I think they win back-to-back Super Bowls. I think he's going to say, "Look, I'm done. I got 3 rings. I can make a case being the greatest tight end in NFL history. I'm done." So that's kind of why I think that drafting a wide receiver this year in first round makes a lot of sense, or maybe in other years it wouldn't, but you got 2 young, talented wide receivers in Sky Moore and Cardavious Toney. In 3 years, both their contracts are going to come to an end. You may not be able to sign one, or you may not want to sign them both. That's kind of why I like that option. But you're right. I think that you re-sign them before that. But, A.T. Perry could be a good pickup in second round, third round. He's 6'4", run 4.41. A.T. I thought you were talking about if that's the wide receiver out of Wake Forest, who I think you're talking about. He's a guy I really like. If that's the guy you're talking about, he's a guy I really like. Xavier Hutchinson. We need a big red zone player. It'll be interesting. The Lions are an interesting thing. No way he's a top 5 guy. Go. Do you think linebacker Sewell gets too much hype? Or are you talking about Noah Sewell out of Oregon? Maybe. I keep seeing him mocked to Detroit in the second round, which I could see happening, but I'm not really sure. I think people like that. You bring brothers together, but NFL teams really usually don't think that way. So maybe Dan, your top 5 quarterback situations by their weapons only. Oh boy, weapons only. Geez, that's a tough one. That is a real tough one. There may be better ones out there, but I'm going to say San Francisco, just right off the top of my head. You got Kittle when he's healthy. He's a top 5 tight end. Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to say top 10 running back. If you want to say top 5, I wouldn't hate that. Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. They got another wide receiver I like. So San Francisco would be on that list. I would have said I'm gonna leave Kansas City off, even though I think Kelsey's the best tight end. God, that's a good one. Right now, today, now he put in for a trade offer. I forgot his name, the Chargers running back, but I would say the Chargers are in there. You got 3 really, really good wide receivers when healthy, a decent tight end, and one of the best running backs in football, even though he put in a trade request. So I'm going to say 49ers, Chargers. Just this is off the top of my head. If I had a little more time to break it down, I'd give you a better answer. But let's see, just right off the top of my head, I'll go Chargers. I'll go 49ers. Man, what a great question. I'd love to dive into it a little more. Potentially, I don't know if it's top 5, but I'm kind of curious. No, I wouldn't say that. I was going to say Pittsburgh, but no. I'm gonna get back to that, but I'm just going to throw out San Francisco and the Chargers just off the top of my head. But I'd love to kind of dive into that a little more. But that's a great question. Mike Edwards, I think I said something different, but I like Mike Edwards quite a bit. Better Milano mic drop. Speaking of coaches, thought that we get a head coaching job? Whether Dan Quinn from the Cowboys, I thought would get a head coaching job. He's a guy he's just transformed his defense, and what a great job he's done too. Mike Kafka, I'm not surprised because it's only year 1, but that's something that people have been doing is drafting unproven offensive coordinators. But Dan Quinn, really deserving of a head coaching job. I thought he was more deserving than either one of the Eagles coordinators, to be honest with you. And the reason why is that he switched defenses. For years, he had that same Seattle defense. It was basically, you knew it was very predictable. It was very simple. And that's the same defense that got him fired in Atlanta. And usually, the expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, Dan Quinn's doing something very creative in Dallas. So I think that Jerry Jones is paying him a lot of money. And I think he's also saying, hey, look, we don't win a Super Bowl. You have a chance to take over as head coach here. So, but that was the number one. I can think of a few others. Eric Bieniemy's one I really thought would get a head coach offer, but it didn't work out. So AJ would break out with St. Brown. Dave M could be a great place and Dave M could be a great place. Gary, I know you love the draft, man. If you haven't already, check out my latest mock draft. I really want Michael Meyer tight end for the Giants. Was he available for the Giants at pick 25? Could you see him for a fit? I absolutely do have him as a good fit for the Giants. My latest mock draft actually have Dallas taking Meyer at 26. Meyer would be an excellent fit because he's a different type of player than Darren Waller. Because you did sign Waller, I think you're going to go in a different direction. I've been mocking Jordan Addison you know what? Actually, I apologize. I don't have Jordan Addison. I've mocked Jordan Addison to New York, but my latest mock draft, I had Deontay Banks. So I apologize. I got my drafts mixed up. But I had Jordan Addison in my first 2 mocks. This last mock draft, I had Deontay Banks. Deontay Banks is a player that Wink Martindale would really like. Big, physical, fast. And also at Maryland, he played multiple schemes, multiple positions, and that's a Wink Martindale trait. But I've had Jordan Addison mocked quite often to New York. I do think Meyer could be available at 25. I think he'd be a great fit because he's a different player than Darren Waller. So Do you think Mr. Robinson is a Cowboy target? Bijan Robinson? I actually do. But here's the deal. I really think the Cowboys are going to make a move and make a move high. It wouldn't surprise me if they get in even before the teens and try for Dalton Kincaid. Chicago at 9 might be an excellent trading spot. Atlanta at 8, Philly at 10. Dallas Philly trading the draft is strange. But I really firmly believe the Cowboys are going to target Dalton Kincaid, but Bijan Robinson's definitely a possibility. I think Bijan Robinson is a guy that he might be the best player in the draft. 30, 40 years ago, he's the number one player. Easy. So there's a list of first-round tight ends who's been productive members when their offense is a really small list. And yeah. I think Dalton Kincaid, I put in my last draft, I put quotes because I think he's more of a big wide receiver. Michael Myers, a guy I think in a couple of years from now, Michael Myers may be the best tight end in football. And then there's athletes. There's Luke Musgrave, who missed most of the season. I don't think I can't remember if he ran at the combine or not, but some people think that he could run in the 4.5 range. There's a tight end out of, I want to say, South Dakota State that some people could go in the second round and be a really good fit. There's a lot of people keep saying Darnell Washington's a first round tight end, the tight end out of Georgia, and I don't think he is. So, do you feel the Raiders got a better fit with Jimmy G? I don't know if they did or not, but I think the reason why they did is that Josh McDaniels, I think, really wants a guy that understands his offense. So Sony Michel, yes, that was the player. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to work out or not, but that's what Josh McDaniels wanted. So if it doesn't work with Jimmy G and Josh McDaniels, I think the Raiders could clean house and just clean house completely. And I think the leash will be short. So if the Raiders aren't around 500, like if the Raiders go 6-11, 5-12, I think the Raiders clean house and try to move on from Jimmy G. Or if they're bad enough, they do everything humanly possible to get the number one pick in the draft and draft the USC quarterback. So, Julian, what's up, brother? I don't. Julian, I don't recognize you. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. My throat's killing me. I'm going to wrap up here in just a few minutes. So I really believe the Chiefs are going to get Quentin Johnston or Jackson Smith. Yeah, I've been mocking both of those players, or trade up, or maybe even players like Clyde Edwards, maybe linebackers, since they're so stacked. Don't be surprised. I could see the Chiefs trying to trade Edwards. I could see the Chiefs trying to trade Willie Gay because they signed Drew Tranquil. I like Willie Gay a lot, but he might be a guy that's out of the Chiefs' price range. So that may be a reason why you bring in a guy like Drew Tranquil. Because remember, you drafted Leo Chenal in the 3rd round last year. So I thought that free agent signing, I like the player. I just don't understand the fit. I've been mocking a wide receiver to Kansas City, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kansas City trades up and gets a guy. Quentin Johnston's my number one wide receiver. Reminds me a lot of Julio Jones. And Jackson Smith and Jigba is a guy I think in Kansas City would be phenomenal. Jordan Addison's another guy. Zay Flowers, I have not watched enough of, but there's like the more I keep hearing about him, the more and more that I keep wanting to put him in the first round. He hasn't been in any of my first round mocks, but he may be Tuesday. So, Jimmy G and Derek Carr, almost the same player. I lean towards Carr being better. Dan probably no. Actually, I don't. I'm very high on Derek Carr. I think that the Raiders got a downgrade in quarterback, but I think that Josh McDaniels wants to do what Josh McDaniels wants to do, and Jimmy G was with the Patriots for a while. But I've always thought Derek Carr was a top 10 NFL quarterback. I think he's really good. And right now today, I have the Saints winning that division because I think they upgraded in quarterback. So no, I disagree. I think that you're getting a worse quarterback, but for some reason or another, Derek Carr and Josh McDaniel, I don't think really got along. And Jimmy G was with the Patriots, I think 4 years. So I think that's kind of what you're going with. If it doesn't work, like I wouldn't be surprised the Raiders just blow up the whole franchise and say, hey, look, we're going to get rid of the coach. We're going to try to get number one pick in the draft, and we're going to go from there. So Smith, Leonard, Parsons, Milano, Campbell, Wagner. I have to be honest, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, but I love that you're using it. I love how you did that. I don't agree with it, but I love it. I love it. I think they're hoping that's what it works out, but it'll be interesting. So, yeah, he was. And Edmonds, why you got a guy who's 260 and you want him in space? I have no idea. I'm really curious how they're going to be. I like the trash talk. I like it. I don't agree. I don't agree with your list. I really don't. But I love it. Rob G's best tight end. He had an impact when he was healthy. Yeah. I mean, when he was healthy, he was as good as anybody. I thought about doing a top 10 tight ends of all time list, and I'll argue. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. They named the best tight end in college football after him. Former Colts tight end, and I can't believe I can't think of the guy's name. I am so embarrassed about this. All right, I'm drawing a complete blank. John Mackey. All right, I'm sorry, but I had to look that up. I drew a complete blank. If I had to do top 10 tight ends of all time, I'd probably go John Mackey. I might do a video. I might actually do a video, top 10 tight ends of all time. So I think you can throw the Eagles, Bengals, and Dolphins as team that got better or worse. We said Dolphins, so I'm going to assume better. So you think Dan? I think he could. I think Mike McCarthy is always going to be skating on thin ice if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, and Dan Quinn could be the Cowboys head coach as soon as next year. So my favorite was when okay, I'm sorry, weapons. Weapons. Oh God, yeah, you're right. Eagles and Bengals, yes. You're right. Yeah, those three, all three of those teams. I don't know why I didn't think of Dolphins right away. So my favorite is when QBs take a huge step in development, coincidentally, the same year their team trades for a great wide receiver. And that's kind of what I'm looking at with the Steelers. And that was why I started off the show. Could the Steelers win their division? Well, yeah. I mean, you got a rookie quarterback who's playing decent at the end of the year. George Pickens, what if he takes that next step up? You got Pat Freiermuth, what if he takes the next step up? What if the Steelers draft a wide receiver? So, yeah. We think about the Lions drafting Johnson and Clancy with their first two picks. Wide receiver Johnston, which one would you take 6? Because if you take Johnston at 6, I'll be honest, Johnson or Clancy at 6, I would be really shocked. The most disappointing team based on the expectations and performances they've had with their current quarterback, Cowboys or Chargers. Well, it's fun. Okay, so here's the deal, One Pride. In the Kansas City area, you hear this every year. Chargers are going to win the AFC West. Chargers are going to the Super Bowl. It's been like 5 years running that the Chargers are going to win the AFC West. So I'm going to say Chargers, but if you're not in Kansas City, you would say Cowboys because Cowboys are more of a media market. But every year we have to hear this is the year the Chargers are going to win the division. So I'm going to say Chargers personally. And also I think Herbert's a better quarterback than Prescott. That's up to debate. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. And if you get him late in the second, that would be where he should go. I'm wondering if he can use him that way. I would like for him to use that way. There's some really good tight ends in this draft. No, the way the contract's set up, they can't. The trade would be almost impossible, so you can't release him. The way the contract's set up, I don't believe that is possible. You'd have to do something really, really creative. But I think of all the things the Cowboys could do in the draft, I don't think quarterback would be any of them. So, and all the tight ends, yeah, there's a lot of really, really, really good tight ends in this draft. If the Chiefs are trading up for a wide receiver, it's got to be a player's type. They have a boner. Yeah, Josh McDaniels is, and I just got a feeling Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr just didn't get along. I have no idea. I'm just spitballing. Derek Carr and John Gruden got along really well. And I'm spitballing here. I could be way off, but I think that Gruden's personality and McDaniels' personality is kind of similar in that they can grate you or like a love-hate thing. I just personally think McDaniels and Carr just were not going to. I thought because he's a lot like Gruden personality-wise, like they could really get along. I think just the opposite. I think they just got in a room together, didn't like each other, and just but yeah, I think McDaniel, I don't know where that quote came from. That sounds really, really, really familiar. I get this feeling from watching Quentin Johnston. 6'4", 215, explosiveness, speed. And you keep hearing the same thing. Well, Max Duggan threw 32 touchdown passes. Why does 6'4" wide receiver only catch 6? The answer is Max Duggan's not an accurate passer. He's an excellent runner. He may make an NFL roster as quarterback number 3, but watch him throw. He doesn't have an NFL arm. I'm not talking strength. I'm talking accuracy. And he's by the way, a great quarterback to watch on the college level, but he doesn't have C.J. Stroud throwing to him. He doesn't have Bryce Young throwing to him, and so for me, I that's kind of why I've been mocking Quentin Johnston, because he's a guy that I keep seeing Julio Jones when I see Quentin Johnson, and I hate doing comparisons like that, but similar size speed combo. So, this is the Iowa tight end, and this is a guy I also really, 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 really like. So, Gooch, I'm about ready to get off of here. My throat is killing me. I'm having a hard time talking, so I'm going to end this here in just a few minutes. Yes, I it was John Mackey. Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree with all those. Well, okay. Yeah. Trade back. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. Every year they say Chargers. That's why I would say the Chargers, but if you're not in the AFC West market, you would probably say Cowboys. Neither answer is wrong, but we're overwhelmed by it over and over and over again. Dan, could you see Daquan Jones, Ohio State offensive tackle, and John Michael Schmitz, offensive center, being available in the second? Jones, yes. Schmitz, no. Osiris Tyrants, I've been mocking in round 1. I don't think Torrance gets out of round 1. I really don't. Available in the third, absolutely not. I've been mocking him in round 1. I think he's easily the best guard. I seriously, Osiris Torrance is a guy I think is going to be like an all-pro player day 1. I really, really, really believe that. I think he's going in round 1. Daquan Jones is a guy, for those of you that don't know, he played right tackle at Ohio State. He's like 360, 370. Guys like that have been falling in the draft because it's so much the speed. So second, third round's a possibility. Schmitz, I think, could go early second, late first. So great question. Great draft question. Two safety. Yeah, it would be. Oh God, yeah. Yeah, because remember he traded up for Tim Tebow. That's a possibility. Oh God, yeah, yeah. I think he is going to get. Um, I do think he's going to get drafted. I really do. If you missed it, one of my shorts, watch one of my shorts where he's on the whiteboard with Steve Mariucci. I it's one of my shorts, and he just aces the whiteboard. Steve Mariucci just starts giggling, and it's not my description, but go to shorts and you can look it up. But Duggan will get that short alone. That whiteboard he had with Mariucci gets him drafted. By the way, I would love to come on your show. I'm going to be a dick and invite myself on, but I want to come on. I love your show. So it's one of the two shows I have you and the Luke G shows I would recommend and I love. So I'd love to come on. And Perry's right. I'm going to do more and more stuff just right now. Right now, one draft video, one live stream. So that's awesome news because I want to come on. Osiris. And by the way, I love both these guys, but Osiris, I think, could be a top 5 guard day one. I think he's going to be awesome. I really, really do. I think so. I've had him mocked to Tennessee, and again, I normally don't do this, but I did. Here's a drill. Normally, I don't like sentimental picks, but I do think that Paris Johnson will be a sentimental pick, but it's also a play. They need a left tackle. They need a left tackle, and if you're wondering what the sentimental value is, it's their head coach Mike Vrabel went to Ohio State, so. I'm wondering if they're going to regret Orlando Brown because they're taking Jawan Taylor and they're flipping him from right to left. And he wasn't an elite right tackle. Orlando Brown was. So Jawan Taylor has to pan out. But if he doesn't, then it'll be Orlando Brown. So, you got to move in the next play. Oh, that sucks. Moving does suck. I don't want to go in. You can DM. I think you got my number too. You can also call me. So, K Moore was good at the whiteboard and did nothing. K Moore, Kellen Moore. Okay, no, I get that. But Duggan has a skill set that's interesting. 30, 40 years ago, they would have told Duggan play wide receiver or play safety. Now, you can use him as a second, third string wide receiver. But that whiteboard with Steve Mariucci being giddy, that got him drafted. Probably late. I would look for a team like Kansas City to draft him late and have some fun because you can use him as a wildcat and you can use him as a variety of different things. But I would anything higher than round 4, and I could see him going anywhere from 4 to 7, but he does get drafted. Dan, the Giants seem to like Hendon Hooker, a quarterback Tennessee is being reported, which are scattering report on them. It's all about the health. You have to be completely sold on health-wise. I thought he outplayed Bryce Young when Alabama played Tennessee. One of my seriously, it was such a great game. One of the best games I've ever seen in my life. And I thought he outplayed Bryce Young. I watched that game and I was like, this is a guy who's a better NFL prospect because he's got that size, he has that athleticism, he's got a really nice arm. You have to be cleared on him medically. And then I think that what you want to do with a guy like Hooker is because he is raw, you got to sit him for a year. I didn't know the Giants were interested in him, but that's an interesting place. I mean, you know that would be really interesting, to be honest with you. I don't have him going in the first round in any of my mock drafts. I might my latest one, but I really like this guy because, I mean, he's not quite the athlete Anthony Richardson is, and Anthony Richardson might be one of the best athletes I've ever seen at the quarterback position. Terrell Pryor was one of them. I remember Terrell Pryor. I think ran like a 4.38. I could be wrong about that, but he had switched to wide receiver. So, but I'm a huge Hendon Hooker fan. You got to be cleared on the medicals. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up. I can barely talk. P. Johnson. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a complete blank. P. Johnson. I'm drawing a complete blank on who you're talking about. That I do think he can develop him. Taysom Hill is a player I would secretly love for KC trade for one day, and Andy and Pat could have some real fun with him. Yeah, I would love that. The contract is crazy high. Oh, Paris Johnson. Okay. Is that what you're talking about? All right, I'm gonna wrap up. I can barely talk. Okay, I have him going to Tennessee, and normally I don't like these sentimental things, but the Ohio State combination, he need a left tackle, so I've been mocking that. But pay attention to my latest mock draft being released tomorrow, Tuesday. All right, I'm out. Follow me on social media. If you have a comment, I'll respond. I'll be back Friday, and check out my latest mock draft. So, yeah. Guys, I'll see you next week.